I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you now. They're back. This is relevant. Liam and Noel are besties. They've made friends. This has nothing to do with money. They've just formed a new bond of trust and love between them. And I've gone online and I'm in the ballot and I'm going to the biggest gig in the universe next year. So, welcome to the Internet Seriously on a Happy Day. I'm Lucian Taylor in Oxford.
I'm Emily Taylor, also in Oxford.
And I'm Kieran McCarthy in London.
And today, coming up on the Internet Seriously, I'm not just going to be trying to squeeze in Oasis, as an old Oasis fan there. We've got some other topics which are absolutely huge news this week for the internet community. The owner of the messaging service Telegram has been arrested by the French authorities. What does this mean for the internet industry? Chinese hackers have been exploiting a 0 days vulnerability in software to target several US internet service providers. And I've just found out from Kieran that a crypto CEO has been attacked in South Korea in the first day of a fraud case. First of all, good morning, everyone. Kieran, we just started talking. You were telling us about this crypto CEO being attacked. Is this in a fraud case? Have people had enough? Are they angry? What's this about?
So it's in South Korea. The guy's name is Hung Soo Lee, and he had Haru Invest was his cryptocurrency in which he promised high yields and no risk. But it turned out it was very high risk. And apparently 70 to 90% of the funds, and there was about $1 billion worth, trillion wons worth, were in charge of, one person was in charge of them. Anyway, it turned out that they lost their money. A fraud case started yesterday, and as the CEO took the stand, someone in the public leapt up and stabbed him repeatedly in the neck.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. Now, Emily, we were told that crypto is now being regulated. It's falling into the same scope as the banks. So how did somebody lose all of that money? Isn't it safe?
Well, I think it's very high risk, and it's being regulated in patches. So there's increasingly, we're seeing that the regulation of crypto is following financial services or securities in the United States, and that means that that crypto providers have to do things like comply with anti-money laundering and other things. But it is still patchy. But I think that the main thing is it's bubble-like quality. So things can be regulated, but still very high risk investments. And crypto, the value is so volatile. And also, I mean, this trial is not the first trial that we've seen. There was a trial in the US of a crypto billionaire as well. Lots. It's very, very frontier-like, isn't it?
I still don't know what to make of it. I mean, I remember going to an event where the former governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney, was actually sort of talking about how exciting crypto is and these new markets, which were less. When you think about the old banking networks, it takes 150 years to apply. We saw, I can't remember
Bank of Dave,
where he was allowed into this creaking ancient club to basically earn money from money, and everyone else has to go hang. And suddenly you've got crypto, which is this sort of wild west. But it seems that it's not so rosy as we think.
It's a crazy industry, but it is very big. And the thing that, like, Bitcoin now is relatively stable and accepted. So all those people that got Bitcoins early on have made, frankly, small fortunes that look like they're there to stay. So you can see why people are taking big gambles. And of course, there was a lot of very good salesmen. There's been a lot of these Bitcoins and other cryptocurrencies, some of which have paid off, most of which haven't. A lot of the fraud investigations, they found celebrities, and celebrities were selling them. And then, of course, people thought this was a great investment. And if a celebrity's behind it, it must be legit. But I mean, there's been a lot of these, and this is a South Korean one.
Yeah, and one of the things, I mean, you've been living in the States until quite recently, haven't you, Kieran? And my feeling is that in the States it's much more mainstream than it is here. And one of the interesting things is how the different states have been competing with each other to have the most regulatory, beneficial regulatory regime for crypto. So Wyoming, you wouldn't really think of as a crypto center, and it really, really is. We were seeing, on the Rest is Politics US, Anthony Scaramucci was in Wyoming for a major crypto conference because he's a big crypto investor.
Yeah, but I've bought a couple of so-called top-level domain names, blockchain domain names, using cryptocurrency. I've had to submit my passport several times to all sorts of dodgy companies all around the world. But, and I've put at risk like $8. Billions of dollars. I mean, I'm going to think very carefully before. I promise you, as soon as I get my hands on $1 billion,
the billion, that's the first bit that's going to be a bit tricky.
Do you think so?
I think so.
Yeah. So,
but that's what I love about America. America just takes these people there, take these big gambles, and often they pay off. People that got in early doors in Facebook are now billionaires because of it. So I love the Americans sort of just chasing. They're like, this one might pay off. Some of them don't. Some of them do massively. It's just that drive which makes these things happen.
Well, let's watch the cryptocurrency markets, but also the court cases, because the drama is unfolding. So I know we all want to talk about the Telegram arrest, but before that, I want to do a bit of housekeeping and talk about this Chinese hack, because I think this is really quite significant, following on from the CrowdStrike one. Just before that, it's time for our Guilty Pleasure Online. I think we're asking, Emily today. Emily, look, she's bursting. She's bursting. Well, we've been informed by a Gen Z in our company that we shouldn't feel guilty about anything.
No, I don't feel guilty about anything anymore.
Yeah.
That was really freeing. And that's lucky because actually my guilty pleasures online are so ridiculously lame, I can't believe it. But I've got another one to add to it, which is Jeremy Clarkson's farming program.
Now you should feel really guilty about that. That's
I'm
appalling.
loving it.
This is the guy that was his own daughter told him off about something he said.
I know. There's so much about Jeremy Clarkson that I disapprove of, but his farming program is brilliant, and it's just like, and he kind of plays this role of, I'm an idiot, everything I do is stupid, and he's surrounded by people who call him a stupid idiot, which is really great. But also there's like gorgeous photography of the Cotswold farms, lovely wildlife, and it also just has this message, but it's as a policy person, it's got the difference between, lecturing and serious stats about how crap it is to be a farmer in the UK at the moment versus entertainment and getting that message across in a way that is really engaging and entertaining.
Well, everybody, welcome to the Diddly Squat podcast.
Appreciation Society.
Yes, no. Charlie, who's our Gen Z, do you see what you've done? We're not allowed to feel guilty about these things anymore. We can just say them.
Yeah, I can just be me now.
Anarchy.
I can just be me. I don't have to improve myself in any way.
Wow, dear, oh dear. It doesn't really make for a good sort of like guilty, does it?
Do you watch it, Kieran?
I watched a little bit. It's on my list of things to watch. But yeah, I agree with you entirely. I mean, Clarkson, problematic views, but he's very good at what he does. He makes really entertaining programs. This
is becoming quite difficult. Okay, back to reality. Chinese hackers have been exploiting a 0 days vulnerability in software to target several US service providers. First of all, Emily, we all talk and joke about the internet, but you go on the BBC and Times Radio and things. They ask you, not us, to go on and comment about these things. Why do you think that is?
Do you think it's because of my gender?
Token girl, yes.
Do you think it's like we've got so many middle-aged men who can comment on this story? Is there any woman?
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think, Kieran? Oh, it's obviously because I'm now going to like channel all my Gen Z-ness. It's because I'm worth it and I'm excellent.
To be fair, I think you're a very good communicator.
So do I. So do I. But I notice you do get the what you call the pre-7 o'clock in the morning slot on the Today programme. Yeah. Okay, Emily, anyway, I turn to you because you are an absolute brain box. What is 0 days?
A 0-day vulnerability is one where the company who is responsible for the software or hardware that is vulnerable doesn't even know that that vulnerability exists. And so something bad happens, it's exploited, and they have 0 days in which to patch. Okay, so 0-day vulnerabilities are very coveted, both by the national security community and also, of course, by criminal hackers. And often are hoarded for several months or years and then exploited. Usually when you see a hack that uses several 0 days in the same hack, that's normally a calling card for government-related type of hacking.
And in this industry, Kieran, we know that there are actually professional sort of what they call ethical hackers or researchers who are looking for vulnerabilities in software, so that companies don't have 0 days, they have more than 1 day to sort out a problem before everybody except the researcher knows about it.
You can make quite a lot of money if you can find 0 days.
How do you make that money?
Large companies will pay you. Google will pay you. Microsoft will pay you. If you find a hole that they have not found in their software and you take it to them and you can prove it, they will say thank you very much and pay you. I mean, it's only relatively recently they did it because they realized the value of it after Microsoft in particular got bitten multiple times, and they thought this might be a good idea to use these hackers' knowledge. And so now they will offer it. They will offer bounties for these things.
And there's two things I'm interested in about this. First of all, I don't know, have either of you heard of Versa, the company that was the victim of the hack? And their product Versa Director was actually the target of the hack. And it was and the hack is the exploit is now known as Versa Mem, because basically it employs a bubble in the processor of memory, and it enables bad functions to happen in real time, and that's invisible to the operating system and the security traces in those environments. But Versa is a bit analogous to CrowdStrike, and it's saying that this is a Chinese state-sponsored exploit. I don't really know what state-sponsored means. I mean, does it mean like the Chinese government sort of say, here's some money, we want you to go and hack some resources in America?
Well, I think there are different flavours of state-sponsored, and it's a sort of one of those umbrella terms, isn't it, Kieran, where you're kind of covering yourself. It might be the state itself. China has a large state and also has is alleged to have a large hacking community that work directly for the state. But say in the case of Russia, you would see a sort of smaller state, but much more of a kind of arm's length, or what I call implausible deniability between the hackers and the state.
Right. And with the Versa Director product, Kieran, what we've got is it actually gives people administration access to clusters of networks. So basically it's a super spreader. And once they're into the Versa Director, they're into many, many other business systems. And because it's 0 days, the manufacturer didn't know about it. They've been sitting there, I think, since June, basically harvesting people's networks. And this is the customers of Versa and who use Versa Director are internet service providers and managed service providers. Primarily, they named 4 of them, though maybe there presumably could be more. But this is a super spreader, isn't it? China is managing to get access to deep businesses. I'm interested in that sort of prevalence of that attack.
Yeah, this is a sysadmin's worst nightmare, because we like to think, oh, well, they're getting in there doing all these terrible things. But the really good hackers, if they see something like this, they recognize it as a huge opportunity. So you can get in there and put in some of your own software that you can then use later once that hole is patched.
And
So they'll have a series of other software that they will use, get into systems, get into as many networks as they can, and install something that helps them get in future days. So it's the nightmare scenario.
And here's another topic that, Emily, we've been talking about is secure by design. And Kieran, you have done a lot of writing for the Register, and I was really interested in what they're saying, and they're folding back to security experts and saying, what's this about? And they're saying this really should convince anyone who's not yet into this sort of idea of secure by design. And they go on to say, one expert there said that the Versa blog, the company's blog on the topic, on the exploit, sort of gently chastises the victim companies for not patching their software on time. That sort of very reactive telling off. And isn't that victim blaming?
Yeah, and it's one of the things that really makes me crazy with anger about our industry is the victim blaming, rather than in the sense that, the people actually in the supply chain have got some responsibility. This is known in our kind of trade as a supply chain attack. You go in at the vulnerability in a small component that is widely used, target a service provider who's in lots of other services, and you are made. And the reports were showing that the attackers were living off the land. They were in those systems for a long time prior to discovery. And, this reminds me a bit of the Office for Personnel Management hack in 2015, where even the CIA chief is like, this is terrible, it's awful, it's putting actual agents at risk. But as a spy, I take my hat off, because this is excellent statecraft, and so the Chinese are really good at what they do.
Well, and this goes back to the TikTok point, doesn't it? We're all paranoid about TikTok wondering where we're going to walk our dog tomorrow, and that being shared with the Chinese state, but they're actually already in our business systems anyway. Why are we going so crazy about TikTok? Kieran?
It's a target, isn't it?
Well,
It's a fun. Everyone uses TikTok and watches fun videos with it, so it's a fun thing that I also think senators can understand.
right.
You try to understand about 0 days.
Yeah.
Data, memory leaks in chips. Let's talk about TikTok.
Let's ban.
How about TikTok?
Ban Versa and Versa Director and monitoring services provided by internet service providers. Let's ban all of this, everybody.
No, I think
everyone would be like, fine, just ban it.
Or should we talk about TikTok?
Anyway, before we move on to the subject we're all bursting to talk about, because we think this is a big change for the internet industry, it's time for our Tech Room 101.
Kieran, tell us what you would consign to the internet dustbin.
Unnecessary buttons.
Very good. Very good.
I don't think that's an honest answer.
Or is there a particular
button?
unnecessary button that you have in mind, Kieran?
I can think of 2 buttons in particular. One is phantom power button for mics, something to do with the fact that I couldn't get my mic working earlier today, and I'd forgotten to press the phantom power button.
Phantom power sounds like a Star Wars villain, doesn't it?
It is the villain.
It is a villain. It is a villain.
So that's one of them. I never use it without it pressed in. So can I have it? I'd like to unpress it or press it to turn it off.
Kieran, I'd like to appeal on behalf of buttons here. I would suggest that it has a better default action of like on, because I've been in my son's all electric VW car, and there's no buttons there anymore, and it's one big screen. And you get in the car to sort of nip down to get some milk, and you're waiting for a computer to boot up. Mm-hmm. It's this. I notice in the airline industry they're keeping their bloody buttons.
Mm.
So we need a balance of buttons.
We do. Yeah, bring back the button.
The other button I want to mention is the audio equipment is the worst with unnecessary buttons. So you have a button that says, this gives a bass boost, or this does this, and you press it and you go, that sounds really good. And that's it. You never press that button again, but they made you press the button.
This is totally...
That is what they want so that they can win.
Yeah,
I love our collective
the button
brain.
industry.
This is
The
absolutely
button industry
insane. I
is
thought you
coming
were-
for us.
I thought
We
you
were
were talking
worried
about-
about TikTok, but actually we should have been worrying about the buttons.
Don't mess with big button.
I think I actually think we're going mad. I think we're going collectively mad. Well, that was very interesting. I was a little bit frightened, Kieran, that you were actually talking about sort of trouser buttons and things. I want to ban buttons. Anyway,
Well, keep those buttons.
here we are, bursting with excitement. I've forgotten what this is about. Yes, the owner of... I can't find my bit of paper.
Telegram.
Can you talk about
Yes, the owner of Telegram, Pavel Durov, has been arrested in France. And he's being investigated for crimes not that he has personally done, but that have happened on his platform. Kieran, you wanted to talk about this as well, didn't you? I mean, there's so many issues to unpack.
Can we
here.
just do a bit of housekeeping? The Paris prosecutor... Oh, let's say that, Emily. You've done this. Law
Beckel.
Yeah, okay. The Paris prosecutors said the investigation concerns crimes related to illicit transactions, child sex abuse, fraud, and the refusal to communicate information to the authorities. Now, I just get the feeling that he's not actually been accused of like the crimes themselves, but that it's about the mediatory and supply chain role of Telegram in that whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, this is it's a real coming of age in a way for Telegram as a platform. You know, a lot of these platforms, particularly Telegram, Signal, are kind of countercultural in their origins. They're about giving people a safe space where they can communicate without fear of being snooped on by the government or authorities. And I had to look at Telegram's terms of service and their privacy policy, and it's really striking the contrast between what they say and what WhatsApp and Signal say about what they'll share with government. So there's very light detail on what's unlawful or what's not allowed on Telegram. It's spam or scams, promoting violence, illegal pornography. That's it. And what they say about their collaboration with authorities is if they receive a court order, which itself is a very rare thing, and that you are a terror suspect, so again, very narrow, we may disclose your IP address and phone number to the relevant authorities. So far, this has never happened.
Sorry,
that's
IP
in their terms.
Phone number and
IP
an email.
address.
So you can just rip off all of that. You can use
Yeah.
Cloudflare's IP cluster. Nobody knows who you are. Your phone number, you've used to burn a phone with your cryptocurrency. And an email address on Gmail, which has no know your customer process at all. So they're sharing nothing with the authorities, and they never do that.
But it's weird, though, because Telegram has got this aura of complete privacy and encryption. And in fact, it's actually less encrypted than services like Signal or even WhatsApp. And there's been persistent rumours of collaboration with the Russian state. You know, dissidents in Russia are saying their doors are being, battered
Yes.
down, and then their Telegram messages are being read back to them by the authorities. So how is that happening? Partly because Telegram still doesn't encrypt at rest by default, and it also holds the encryption key. So there are all sorts of really interesting issues that arise from this.
And setting aside, obviously, the Russian citizens who want to actually operate against their own authorities and want to do their own thing and protect their themselves. There's also this whole thing about this demand on internet firms to remove illegal content, to actually get into the game of content management. Kieran, I'm interested in that, right? Surely the other social media platforms must be quaking a bit, mustn't they, looking at the outcome of this?
It's very interesting to see what they're saying, or rather not saying. So you would imagine in this scenario that the other big apps, WhatsApp, Signal, what are the other ones? Google has messaging, all the messaging apps. You would think they would be coming out and saying this is appalling, but actually they've been oddly quiet about it. And I think that the reality is if you run one of these services at some point, especially if you're in the US, you get a visit from people, and they let you know about the laws that exist and the laws that are a little bit secret, and they let you know that exactly what you need to do. And if you don't do it, you run into a lot of trouble.
So
Clearly, the Telegram has snubbed its nose at extremely powerful people, and this is what happens when you do that. They've said, no, we won't allow this to happen. Clearly, there's a lot of stuff happening on Telegram that the intelligence agencies want to know about, that are very worried about it. And he said no. And then and he's a French citizen, and Macron ran him through a VIP process to get him that citizenship, even when you think you're safe. If there's very serious stuff going on, the intelligence agencies will step in, and I think that's what we're seeing here. So I think we'll see some silence from the tech industry because they know what the real deal is.
And the French are going very what's on the tin about this, wouldn't you say, Emily? We've heard from security people who say, oh, they share people, and and there's a lot of sharing, and it's all very kind of. It sounds a bit like mates ringing each other up, trusted friends. And the French seem to be saying, we don't care about that. What does it say in the terms and conditions?
I think that's really true because, speaking to friends and contacts in the sort of law enforcement area, they're like, actually, once you establish a relationship, the Telegram people are pretty easy to deal with it
won't be the owner,
in serious cases. It's not going to be the owner itself, but what they say in their terms is so striking, and it either they are collaborating with authorities and then what they're saying to their users is not true,
right,
or they're not collaborating with authorities, and as Kieran says, that's going to be a big problem. And actually what you're thrown back to is sort of informal personal relationships that get established to just keep the wheels going. And that is, in fact, a really vulnerable area for governance because it means that safeguards aren't really routinely applied. There isn't proper transparency, and it's all about who you know and your mates.
Now, this does make me smile because I've sort of folded this back to the domain name industry, where the governments and the authorities are showing their frustration. And I think this, where we get NIS2, where we get the act in the European Union, which seeks to look at sort of better credentials for sort of when you take on board new customers and things like that. The authorities seem to be upping the ante, getting more aggressive. And you've got the domain name industry and the domain name registrars and managers who are all sort of saying, nah. For the last 10 years, they've been sort of saying, no, you can't say that because all we can do is shut down websites and we can't really deal with crime. You've got to figure out this. And I've been watching over the last 2 years the whites of their eyes, and they've been like, oh, we want to try and care about this. We really do. And now it's like the authorities seem to be saying, I don't really care what you say. You're under arrest.
Here's a law. Yeah. No, you're
Go to jail.
Do you like prison food?
Yeah.
And I think it is. Oh, we keep getting told off. We have not mentioned our socials. We need to mention the socials.
Please don't forget, if you're watching this, if you're interested, follow us, like us, and follow us, please, on the channels. We need more and more subscribers. We have been getting some super massive views, tens of thousands for some of our shorts. So it's clearly happening. But as we get more guests, we want more and more subscribers.
And I wanted to come back actually and say thank you to all the people who commented, particularly on our TikTok channel on the Disney story from last time. Nick and several others pointed out that Disney subsequently dropped that argument that we thought had probably been done by an AI while their lawyers were on holiday. Thank you, Nick, and others for pointing that out. And then there was a whole interesting debate. Kadomi08, if that's how you pronounce it, was talking about lots of Europeans were like, well, that would never hold up in terms of service in the EU. Quite right too, and anything that excludes liability for death or personal injury in consumer terms is a no-go in the European Union and even in the UK. So thank you all of you for your comments. Brilliant. Keep them coming.
Thank you very much. That's the end of this podcast today. We've had a great time talking about various things. I just wanted to add at the very end, Oasis, they've patched up their differences. This is nothing to do with their children persuading them to pursue the filthy lucrator. But anyway, so far the internet has been fantastic. I've gone online, I've gone to Ticketmaster, one of my favourite things, and I've entered the ballot. And next week I'll let you know whether I managed to get a ticket. The guys keep doing this. They keep doing, what are they called, Easter eggs, where you put a little bit of something where I used to be in a band, and that was me in a car when I was in my band, and I used to sing Wonderwall. So there you go. Thanks for that, guys. I'll remember that. Today we have been.
If you do get a ticket, will you sing on the next show?
Oh,
Yes,
you will. Yeah, I will sing.
He's going to play guitar on the next show.
And
good.
bloody Charlie will be here as well.
Yeah, Charlie could play guitar, which would probably be better.
Yeah. So we've been discussing the owner of the messaging service Telegram has been arrested by the French authorities. Chinese hackers exploiting 0 days vulnerability in software, and a crypto CEO getting attacked in the first day of his fraud case. Thank you very much. That is the internet seriously.